I took this picture in the fall of 2023 at a Longleaf Pine Savanna nature preserve. Most of it was fenced off, but there was a short hiking trail open to the public. The land was flat with tall, narrow trees poking up. It didn't feel like a typical forest. The trees were far apart from one another, leaving plenty of room for the breeze to snake through. A good portion of North America used to look like this. From Virginia all the way to the western edge of Texas, the land used to be covered in longleaf pine. To thrive, the longleaf pine needs fire. It is an ecosystem that needs to burn to survive. When a fire comes through, it burns away competing plants. The tree, while not fireproof, is fire-resistant enough to survive the burn. Once the ground has been cleared, new seeds can take root in the fresh soil. Essentially, everything the ecosystem doesn't need gets burned away. If you're trying to protect the environment, controlled burns are a way to maintain that natural balance. Native Americans have been doing them for ages. But try explaining that to someone whose only goal is to make their money and get out. Once abundant, the longleaf pine savanna is now exceedingly rare. It's estimated that only 5% of it is left. For it to grow, it has to burn. Speaking of which, I've been playing the Midnight Walk. I'm sure a lot of people gravitated towards the Midnight Walk for its art direction. I know that's what initially caught my eye. This handcrafted world of clay creatures, the eerie lighting, the bold character design, the stop-motion style of animation, it's beautiful. What stuck with me the most, though, was its central metaphor. Everything in the game, every character, every location, every mechanic, every puzzle, every action set piece, everything is built around fire. Of all the metaphors to implement, fire is a great one. It's versatile. It can, and does, mean different things in different contexts. Fire spreads to every corner of the Midnight Walk. It is the burning core of this game's identity. The player takes control of the Burnt One. At the start of the story, he emerges from a coffin. No eyes, no ears. We never see what he looks like, only glimpses of his ashen arms. The Burnt One begins his journey down this long road, the titular Midnight Walk. The story follows his pilgrimage towards the mysterious Moon Mountain. Even though he's a silent character, the Burnt One, through his use of coffins, his broken body, and his name, embodies what's left after a fire. He personifies the coals, the ash, the things that have been, well, burnt. Of course, his journey to Moon Mountain isn't a lonely one. It isn't long before he meets his trusty companion, the ever-lovable Potboy. Potboy has the combined energy of a toddler and a puppy, and he's literally on fire. Potboy's head is a small furnace of sorts. He eats coal, he sets stuff on fire, and gets into mischief. He also serves as the Burnt One's foil, representing the beginning of a fire, the spark, the hunger, and the compulsion to set stuff ablaze. The game takes place in a land called the Work Table, a frightening, macabre land that has been plunged into darkness. There are legends of this fire in the sky called the sun, but few, if any, have ever seen it. Everyone has acclimated to life in eternal night. This is a world without light, without warmth, without fire. Well, almost. The Burnt One and Potboy are able to wield fire, the first to do so in a very long time. The Burnt One can light giant matches that can be used as temporary torches, while Potboy is literally on fire. Setting stuff on fire is the primary way the player interacts with the world. The Midnight Walk is a puzzle game at its core. The player is faced with a set of passageways and has to figure out how to make it through. Usually this involves manipulating candles, platforms, or contraptions, or by figuring out how to pass by a ferocious monster without getting devoured. But the solution isn't just to set everything on fire. For a game with such a strong emphasis on burning stuff, the player never outright destroys things with their combustible power. Instead, the player has to find some sort of balance between Potboy's eager spark and the Burnt One's sullen ashes. Each fire sits somewhere in the middle. What do you ignite, and when do you do it? That being said, the fire is fairly easy to control. The Burnt One is never at risk of burning the whole work table to the ground, and while that could be seen as a limitation, I do think it reinforces the dichotomy of its two central characters. The Burnt One has to be responsible with his matches and with Potboy, who doesn't exactly burn stuff with discretion. Potboy is a child and a spark. He is fire untamed. Fire is only a tool if it can be controlled. The game's story is structured like a short trilogy of self-contained episodes that take place on the journey to Moon Mountain. Each episode introduces a new village, new characters, and a new way fire can be used to move through the level. In the first episode, the Burnt One arrives at a town filled with severed heads called Nobodyville. The town is under attack from a slimy, bloodthirsty creature, the Mulgrim. The Nobodies task the Burnt One with putting an end to the Mulgrim and her reign of terror, but of course, things aren't so simple. In this chapter, fire is a stand-in for power. The Mulgrims once had some sort of divine connection to the sun and, by extension, fire. This led to a great conflict, resulting in the Mulgrims reaching near extinction. This is the last one. Is the Mulgrim really such a threat? The second episode takes place on a frigid mountain in the abandoned town of Coalhaven. While ascending the mountain, gusts of wind will blow out Potboy if you're not careful. His furnace will need to be reignited. The harsh air poses a threat to both the Burnt One and Potboy. They will need to work together to make it to the town at the mountain's summit. When they arrive at Coalhaven, they're greeted by a giant furnace in the center of town that no longer burns. Ghouls roam, cursing the name of a thief who stole all of their matches, dooming the town to an icy death. Here, fire is a stand-in for life itself. Without fire, without a means of survival on this unforgiving mountain, there is no way for the town to survive. The Burnt One and Potboy need to use their fire to bring warmth and life back to the town. The third episode features a giant called the Craftsman and his makeshift kingdom. He has a fuse attached to his heart that meanders through the town. In order to free his heart, the pair must follow the fuse through the kingdom, lighting it each step of the way. In this case, fire is a stand-in for inspiration. The fuse that connects to the craftsman's heart snakes all around his ramshackle creation. His heart is literally tied up in this kingdom that fills him with regret. It takes Potboy, a spark, to untangle this mess and free him from his self-made burden. Fire is used to solve puzzles and make progress. Fire enacts change over the course of the story. So that's it. Set stuff on fire and win, right? Well, not exactly. Fire doesn't always keep the Burnt One safe. All across the work table, creatures roam the land, and the player has no way to defend themselves. At first, I thought the match cannon was a weapon, but no, the player is completely defenseless. The Burnt One will have to hide in the shadows, away from the light, away from the fire. The monster encounters feel less like stealth challenges and more like puzzles with stakes. The Burnt One doesn't have command over darkness like he does with fire. He has to make use of the shadows available. Except that's not entirely true. If the Burnt One needs darkness, he can create his own private oasis of shadow by closing his eyes. Sometimes this will heighten his other senses so he can listen for nearby clues. Sometimes a gate will open or he will be teleported to a new place. And sometimes closing his eyes is the only way he can fight back against certain creatures. Even though fire is what enacts change, darkness is, ironically, a beacon of safety. The safest place the Burnt One can be is inside a wardrobe. All creatures will pass him by. If that's the case, why get out of the shadows at all? Fire is scary and unwieldy. Darkness is predictable and safe. In each of the 3 chapters, fire is used to solve some sort of underlying issue. Everything is where it needs to be. Potboy sets something ablaze, the music swells, but have the issues really been solved? The Mulgrim now has control over her fire once again. The Nobodies contemplate brokering a peace deal. The 2 parties will reach a new equilibrium. But it will never be how it was before. All the apologies can't bring back what has already been lost. You can't restore something that has been burned. Coalhaven's furnace burns once again. Life can return to the town, but this town hasn't seen life in ages. The thief burned the last match. The furnace went out. Everyone perished. Even though their souls may rest easier, it cannot undo what's been done. The craftsman's heart may be healed. It may literally burn with passion once again, but his favorite creation, his daughter, will still live her own life. He has to let go and let her be her own person. It doesn't take away the pain of life turning out differently from the way you imagined it. So what was the point of any of this? What was the point of venturing down these side streets, risking our lives in an attempt to save these strangers? Why do anything? We should have stayed in the dark where we belong. I think it's interesting how much fire has invaded language. A flash of inspiration is a spark. If you're exhausted, you're burnt out. A dormant friendship can be rekindled. An attractive person is hot. Someone who is mad burns with rage. Someone with a good idea is cooking, while a person who isn't doing so well is cooked or burned. All of these things are metaphorical. None of them have to do with temperature or light or combustion, but we understand what they mean. Fire is a versatile symbol. Though there's one saying that I think applies the most to the Midnight Walk: being in a dark place. This obviously isn't a comment on the actual available light. It's the lack of any hope or spark. It's the absence of power, life, or inspiration. The work table has been without a sun for ages now. It has become the stuff of legend. But everyone is kind of used to it by the time the burnt one arrives. Sure, it would be nice if it would come back, but why change things now? One of the most useful things I've ever heard about being in a dark place is how it can be oddly comforting. It might not be what's best, but it's predictable. It's safe. Nothing will change and it will be the same as it always is. The safest place to be is behind the doors of a wardrobe. Because making a change is scary. In the Midnight Walk, every change is enacted by this all-powerful force. If used incorrectly, disaster could happen. The Longleaf Pine Savanna needs fire to survive. It needs to burn away the things it doesn't need in order for the ecosystem to flourish. But what if there's a drought and the fire grows too large? What if the controlled burn gets out of hand? What if everything ends up worse than how it started? Wouldn't it be better just to make sure it never burns again? In order to get out of a dark place, there needs to be some sort of change. And it's scary because it's uncertain. Things might be better in the future, but what if things aren't? What if I leave this job that's making me miserable only to end up at one that's worse? What if we start a relationship and we end up hating each other? What if I cut ties with a toxic person only to realize that I was the problem all along? What if I try to, drink less and end up feeling worse? There's no way to know what will ultimately happen, and that's scary. It's scary to think that one small change, one spark, could lead to a brighter future, or it could end in disaster. The Midnight Walk starts with the burnt one in a coffin with no eyes and ears. Something has gone wrong. He was burned, and he cannot be unburned. Yet he continues to Moon Mountain. He finds some form of hope in this little flame kid. His journey is not easy. It's filled with gruesome monsters, inhospitable mountains, and bitter realizations. And even though what has already been done cannot be undone, the world is still better off with their fire. The world is better off with the light and heat and comfort and joy the Burnt One and Potboy are able to bestow upon the inhabitants of the work table. The game is not subtle with its metaphor, but it uses it to great effect. Fire is everything. It is power. It is knowledge. It is inspiration. It is warmth. It is love. It is hope. It is change. It is life itself. But it's also dangerous. It's unpredictable. In the wrong hands, it can cause serious harm. How do I know that my own hands can be trusted with such a powerful force? Is making some sort of change worth taking a potentially dangerous risk? The Midnight Walk helped me process more than a few things. Through its story, its setting, its gameplay, it communicated something that I needed to hear. Journeying through the land of endless night, meeting broken characters trying their best to be mended, I don't know, it inspired me to make a few changes in my life. And I think it's really special when a piece of art is able to do that. Maybe sometimes it's worth lighting that match.